Are you a pantser or are you a plotter?
When I was a kid, I was purely a pantser, and I was good. Granted, my stories were terrible, but I sort of understood at a young age, I think, where plot points and major pieces of the story needed to be before I even had any real formal training on the matter. I think it's just because I watched a lot of movies and I read a lot of books, so I was probably picking up on trends subliminally. In the very least, I used to write with like conviction and confidence and this scary, scary momentum. You couldn't stop me. And then academia got its hooks in me. Not to take a huge dump on schools necessarily. I'm actually pretty lucky in that area. I had a pretty great string of English teachers and English departments and storytelling mentors, so pretty happy about that. But somewhere along the way, it just kind of got imprinted in my brain that pantsing bad, plotting good. I studied storytelling disciplines and paradigms all the time, in my free time, for class, whatever. I wanted to know that I understood story and that I was doing the right thing every time. The monomyth, Dan Harmon's story circle, props morphology of folk tales, the Virgin's promise, the plot dot, save the cat, two goal plot structure, Kisho Tenketsu, you name it, I've probably read about it. And you combine that with a system of being built around people who are better planners than discovery writers. And then you add a lot of family trauma into the mix, and you get a young collegiate Brent who just suddenly can't pants as well as he used to, or sometimes at all. Thankfully, I've been getting some of that confidence back, and with it, some of my younger pantsing instincts. But being perfectly honest, most of the time these days I'm doing a blend of both, which seems counterintuitive and contradictory, but I think I've found a way. I wasn't about to let all of that plotting research go to waste. I just wasn't. I can plot with the best of them, and I don't think it's wrong. Like, this isn't an either or situation, but to me personally, it just feels like the less fun alternative of the two. I just feel like if I plot every single minute detail on a plot outline, I've basically written my story already. It's just the most boring version of my story. And I feel like I only have one tank of gas committed to each story idea. And I can either spend that gas writing it or planning it, if that makes any sense. So what I do most times anymore is like just a more strictly disciplined version of what I used to do as a kid. I don't always write a story knowing what I'm gonna write, but I know the way a plot unfolds, and I know what sections are ahead and what each section requires of me as a writer. So I sort of just make decisions on the fly, like what is the best thing I could do? What is the best fit in the need for this section? Let's let's use Dan Harmon's story circle for example. I know in the U section I have to introduce the main character in their normal circumstances. I don't necessarily know all the details up front. I just know I have to work my way towards them. And I know in the needs section, I'm going to have to establish what they want, what they need, what's going to get them out the door. I don't necessarily know what that is, but I know it's a goal I'm going to reach. And I'm kind of looking for it on the road like a guidepost. But since I've already written the U section, that's just a lot of the homework done for me. And I can go back and just look at what I already have. And then I just sort of reverse engineer story from that. Like their motivation, the want, the need, all of that. And keeping on the theme of whatever it is I'm trying to write about. Which sometimes I don't know right off the bat either. Sometimes I just invent them as I go, or I discover them as I go. I don't really see pantsing as a choice, though, if that makes any sense. I mean, It's called discovery writing for a reason. People sometimes accuse pantsers of like, you're just making it up as you go along with like it's a huge crime or something. But I'm being honest when I say that's just not how it feels to me. Most of the time. Anyway, when I'm in the zone and I'm actually truly mostly pantsing, I feel less like a writer who's making up a story than someone who's looking around. Like I'm exploring or observing something. And I'm just writing down what I see, man. Like if I'm on vacation or I'm exploring some unexplored land, I'm not responsible for all the landmarks that are already there. If I'm going on a road trip, I'm not responsible for all the stops along the highway that I see. But I'm writing it all down as I see it. That's my responsibility. And then occasionally I course correct because inevitably you have to. But that's just me.